Patreon Q&A number 136. I want to thank all 129 of my incredible patrons. Guys, thank you so much for continuing to support me. And to everyone else listening, there's going to be spoilers for all of the series I'm going to be talking about, so tread carefully. Jimmy P asks, if you were writing the storyline for One Punch Man Season 3's anime, how would you begin the first episode and how would your season finally end? So how I would write the storyline is how I think they're pretty much going to do it themselves when they ultimately get around to making season 3. And that's the first episode, picking up with chapter 85, because season 2 ended on chapter 84 with the big Elder Centipede fight and Garou being carried away to the Monster Association. And chapter 85 opens up with the Hero Association executives talking to each other, basically going over a lot of the things that happened in season 2, or mainly at the end of it. And then the rest of the chapter is just more exposition and build up for what the rest of the season is going to be about, I guess. You know, setting up the S-Class heroes more, setting up the plot. So it won't be like a really exciting first episode, but the ending of that episode could be Garou waking up in the Monster Association, which happens at the beginning of the following chapter. And then the rest of the season will just be more build up and a lot of pretty great fights, like the S-Class hero further establishing themselves, them establishing the plan going into the Monster Association, all the variables going into that. And while all of this is happening, Garou is going on his own little side quest, you know, having his struggles with his internal character. And also he still has to protect Tario from Royal Ripper and Bug God, who he is almost straight up killed by, and then that leads to Garou's redemption, where he has to go into the Monster Association to save Tario, and that leads to, you know, some of the best chapters of the series. And then going further, we'll eventually get to the point of where the S-Class strike team is going to raid the Monster Association, and we're going to get all those great chapters where they eventually go into the Monster Association and everything that happens after that. And then I think the season will conclude with Saitama defeating Orochi. At least in my mind, that's a pretty great way to have season 3 play out. I mean, I know there's a lot of people that think that like season 3 will comprise the entire Monster Association arc, which just doesn't make sense to me. I'm just not really sure why they would do that. Is it possible? Sure. I mean, look at the Promised Neverland season 2. They could easily just do something like that and ruin the entire series, but I just certainly hope that they don't do that and take it the pace that they realistically should. And I also think that the retcons and redraws that Murata and One have been doing with the story is ultimately for the purpose of making season 3 flow the way that I think it is going to. Your second question, have you watched the Mortal Kombat reboot? No, I haven't. I'm not really that interested in Mortal Kombat. I'm like more of a Street Fighter, Tekken type of guy, I guess. But I did see the trailer and I just wasn't really interested in it, and it didn't look like it was really gonna be good anyway. And I saw a lot of the gripes on Twitter was like, first of all, there's no Johnny Cage. Second of all, there's like no tournament, which is funny because like, isn't Mortal Kombat itself like a tournament? Dino W asks, if Tank Top Master is really gone, what's going to happen to the Tank Toppers? Will they just quit, join the Neo Heroes, or team up with Moomin Rider? So that's a good question. I didn't even think about that, but I'm assuming that some of them will leave because, you know, some of them left, you know, just from simply losing to Garou. I assume that there will still be some diehards that won't leave even if that does happen. And it's possible that Tank Top Master then becomes like a title. Like, it's not necessarily just Tank Top Master himself, but another person can become that. So someone would just succeed him. Who would it be? I don't know. Maybe Tank Top Girl? That would be pretty cool. Your second question, who would win in a fight between the original Guardians of the Globe and the Battle Beasts team? So I have started Invincible. I just finished episode 2. So I haven't gotten to the Battle Beast yet, so I don't know what would necessarily happen in this matchup, but I'll probably be caught up by next week, so I'll have a better answer then. First Wolf asks, considering what we've seen of the second user of One For All, could he have a quirk similar to Mega Man's X-Buster? Could be pretty powerful, especially if supercharged by One For All. Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. It's gonna be something like that, especially since they have aesthetic similarities and, you know, covering the whole entire hand. And also, I wouldn't be surprised if Horikoshi is straight up paying homage to Mega Man with this character or his quirk, or at least was just inspired by it at least. All things point to it being some kind of like projectile laser energy or something. If it's not that, it would really surprise me. I wouldn't be disappointed. I mean, I would just have to see what it was. It ultimately seems like it's gonna be like a Mega Man type quirk or something. Geruda asks, how impressed are you with the cadre's feat so far? Very impressed, and I think it's much needed because the main cadres, I'll say, were really living in the shadows of like the first cadres that we saw, like Elder Centipede and Goketsu. Like, they had crazy feats, and those of us who had read the webcomic knew that, you know, the cadres in that continuity didn't look very strong compared to the former. So it's understandable that one of Murata really need to amp them up to make them, you know, comparable to their predecessors. L asks, within Gojo's Infinite Void, that sequence with Gojo seemed a bit hard to follow. Further explain the workings of Infinite Void without spoilers if possible. So honestly, there's not much to go off of it other than what was explained in that scene. He creates like a space around you with a typical domain expansion, and I guess he just overloads your brain with information using the power of Limitless. So the way that I think about it is, like, think about a computer. Now, how, you know, it could just run standardly, you know, you're running your programs and whatnot. Now take the same computer, but then open like 10,000 Chrome browsers, and then, you know, what would happen with that? Just think about it in the same way that, like, your brain would be overloaded by Gojo's domain expansion here. I think Geji purposely tries to make things way more complicated than they are within Jujutsu Kaisen. Okay, so Little Ferrari and Samurai both asked the same question, and that's who would win between Super Ally Darkshine and Fura Ugly. You know, before you'd think that, you know, Darkshine would absolutely smash him, but now that we've seen Fura Ugly's true feats, it's maybe up in the air, especially because Darkshine is kind of dropped in stock. So I'll say that a confident Darkshine, take that for what you will, would probably defeat Fura Ugly, simply because it seems like in the manga's continuity, or at least I'm 90% sure, that Bang is going to rip a hole through him. So if Bang has enough physical strength to be able to do that, not even taking technique or skill into the equation, I assume that Super Ally Darkshine would be able to do the same thing. But Fura Ugly could also, like, I don't know, maybe even psychologically break down Darkshine, which he is very susceptible to, right? So Samurai's next question is Zoro versus Katakuri. So I think that Zoro would, you know, probably have a similar level of difficulty with Katakuri that Luffy did, but given that he seriously wounded Kaido with the Ashura, maybe even more impressively than Oden did, I mean, it looked bigger than Oden's wound, I'm assuming that if he pulled that off on Katakuri, there's no way he's taking that. So, you know, Zoro probably would take him with the Ashura. And then your last question, how strong do you foresee Shanks to be compared to Kaido and current Luffy? I think Shanks is probably going to be stronger than Kaido. Maybe not by like a large margin, but enough for him to be considered an upgrade in a matchup for Luffy after Kaido. If Kaido is, let's say, adept at using Conqueror's Haki with his attacks, I think Shanks is probably like a virtuoso at it, if that makes sense. I mean, I guess Shanks did stop Kaido from coming to the Paramount War, right? Or at least it's implied that he did, so maybe he was even able to stop Kaido, you know, in an attack exchange or something, maybe. Awakened Saitama asks, what do you think would happen if the students of Class 1A took the Super Soldier Serum? So in the My Hero world, the Super Soldier Serum would make a person maybe as strong as 5 to 10, maybe 15% of One For All, or at least from what we've seen of Izuku using full Cowling. So I guess we can kind of equate that to, like, what if the students of 1A had like 10 to 15%, maybe even 20% of One For All, not really sure. So that means that they would just all have the physicality of Izuku at that point, essentially, but with their quirks. So I'm not sure if the Super Soldier Serum would enhance their quirks the way that One For All enhances the quirks of Izuku, but them all having superhuman traits would push them easily to pro hero levels, if not even top 10 Billboard level at that point. Because, you know, in My Hero, it's one thing to have a great quirk, but it's another thing to have superhuman physicality and a great quirk, kind of like how Endeavor does. Delamante asks, if you got the chance to read the next arc of One Piece or Jujutsu Kaisen, which would you choose? So I would choose One Piece for sure, mainly because Jujutsu Kaisen is coming to an end soon, or, you know, within the next 2 years or something. So I'm fine just riding it out. But for One Piece, it's still got another 5 or 6 years or something left. And also the next arc is implied to be Shanks' arc, and I've pretty much waited most of my life for this, so I'm really looking forward to seeing what Shanks can do. Sean H asks, the Josh fight should be happening as you record this video. Who do you think is going to win? So I'm assuming that Josh Swain is probably going to win, but I could be wrong. And also, I'm assuming that this is going to be very disappointing, and if people do actually show up, it's definitely not going to be exclusively Josh's who do. Star Reaper asks, what are your thoughts on Mumen Rider winning with the suit? So I don't have an issue with this, honestly, and I don't think having any kind of augmentation or gear or any kind of power up outside of your own ability diminishes your accomplishments or anything. I mean, in the end, you are the one who is doing it. Like, Mumen Rider is limited by his abilities and just, you know, his, I guess you could say, genetics. And it's not even like he went out of his way to get that suit or whatever. It was given to him because of who he is. So I think, if anything, Mumen Rider certainly deserves to have the suit and the power that comes with it. So I don't see it being any different than, like, Atomic Samurai using a sword, Metal Bat using his bat, Genos being a cyborg, Drive Knight being a cyborg, etc. Second question, what if Boros' prophecy was about Blast, but he just unluckily ran into Saitama instead? So it's very possible that the Alien Seer was talking about Blast, but I always assumed that he was talking about God because, you know, maybe he's tapping into some kind of Esper ability to be the Alien Seer, or for him to be able to see that Earth had potential. And God is, of course, connected to Esper abilities in some way. Like, it seems like there's some kind of, like, Esper internet out there or something, and God is, like, on it or something. I don't know. I mean, it could be God, it could be Blast, it could have been Tatsumaki, or it could have been the Ninja Leader. I mean, there's just a lot of strong people on Earth that could have maybe given Boros a competitive challenge or something, maybe. Wolfire54 asks, do you think in the next chapter, Bang will save Tatsumaki and Tank Top Master by using the abandonment technique? So if it's not the next chapter, it will be the chapter after that. I'm 90% sure this is going to happen, and I really hope it does. So I think that first Genos is going to step up to try to save Tatsumaki, and then Fear Ugly is probably going to further transform. And then whatever happens after that, you know, Black S maybe steps in too. Then Bang is going to step in, do the abandonment, and then one-shot Fear Ugly and Gums. And then I guess Tank Top Master is somehow going to get out of Gums at that point. You know, considering that Silverfang is ripping half of his head off, maybe Tank Top Master will just spill out at that point. Second question, if Suiko does become a part of the Saitama group, could you see Fubuki getting the wrong idea between those two and get jealous? So if this does happen and Fubuki notices this, I don't think she'll get jealous in, like, the romantic sense. I think she'll more so get jealous because, you know, Suiko is, like, stealing Saitama's attention and hindering her attempts at getting Saitama to join the Fubuki group, if anything. In my opinion, I don't think a solid, concrete romantic aspect has fully been established yet between Saitama and the Psychic Sisters. Zapphod B asks, do you think we'll ever get some kind of universal power system in One Punch Man, like Chakra, Nen, or Haki, etc.? So I think it would be pretty cool that if later on in One Punch Man it's established that there's some kind of higher power system out there that can be attained outside of Esper and stuff like that, but I just don't think that it will necessarily be like a Haki or a Nen or something. I think, if anything, we'll just get a further, like, in detail explanation as to what exactly the power system of One Punch Man is in general, because we don't really understand where it comes from yet. I mean, it's implied that it's maybe coming from God or something. So if anything, I think that will be further explored. And then your second question, what if Golden Ball and Spring Mustachio had a fight? So that's a good question. I think it would probably be super competitive, right? And I guess either could win. It would come down to who is the better man that day. But I don't know. I'm kind of thinking that Spring Mustachio has a better chance possibly because I think he's underrated. Like, he has some pretty crazy feats. Like when he does, what is it called? The Tomboy or something? Like when his sword like extends, looks pretty crazy, almost like a demon level feat. Mr.Awsome asks, who do you think was born with more potential for power, Frieza or Broly? So I'm not really sure because Frieza was always kind of weird to me because, like, you know, once he came into Super, I think it was said that he only had to train for like 3 or 4 months or something for him to become essentially as strong as Super Saiyan Blue, if not even like eventually surpassing that by the Tournament of Power. And I guess he was starting with what, like Super Saiyan level of power, somewhere around there. So I don't understand why he never just kept training, because he could have, like, I don't know, if he went like a year or a little more, he could have even surpassed Jiren in theory, right? Unless it only took him like 3 months to reach his absolute potential. And Broly is kind of like the same unknown to me. I don't know what his potential is because I mean, I don't really know what his training was like. I guess it was said that Paragus trained him, but, like, you know, how far could
Paragus really push him. But for now, without definitively saying that one has more potential than the other, I guess you could say they're maybe in the same tier of potential, maybe. A very second question, could Dr. Genius return Bang's body to his prime? So I assume he could. I mean, if he could do it to himself, I don't know why he wouldn't be able to do it to Bang. But for some reason, I think that Bang maybe wouldn't agree to it. I mean, it would be awesome if he did, but I don't know. For some reason, I'm thinking that Bang would be like, no, you know, it's a nice offer, but I'm okay with old age and I'm fine with this body. I don't need to go back or something. I don't know. I just totally see Bang doing that for some reason. Natedawg asks, what's Tank Top Master's fate? I say Phoenix Man revives him after Bang goes abandonment. So that's a tall order. I'm not really sure when Phoenix Man is going to come back into the story, but if he comes back so soon and then still has his revival powers in his chick form, that would be kind of weird. On top of him reviving Tank Top Master, because I don't know why he would do that. For, I guess, making a zombie that could fight for him, possibly. But then that means that Tank Top Master would need to be electrocuted, like the ninjas were, for him to fully come back and not just be a zombie. Is it possible? Sure, why not? But I just don't think it's very likely that that will happen. But I do think Tank Top Master will come out of gums after Bang splits him in half. But I guess it'll just be a long road for recovery after that.
That's pretty much it for the video today, guys. Once again, I want to thank all 129 of my amazing patrons. And if you would like to be in next week's Q&A, simply check out the Patreon. The link will be in the description. The $5 tier will give you access to this video. And if you haven't already, please subscribe as well. Have a great day. I'll see you in the next one.